white t-shirt.
Are you on camera? We're good.
Yeah, I think I am, yeah. I see. Okay.
Man, what's going on, brother?
Okay, there's a lot going on in the world today.
No doubt.
It's a very tumultuous time, very difficult time, especially for, I think you and I are on the same page. We're all into people protesting and
100%.
voicing their opinions. But I think whatever movement you want to call it, and I don't even want to use terms that necessarily political, left, right.
Right.
It's just, I think there's just a lot of people who are misinformed and uneducated about what police really do, and obviously these incidents that have occurred. Again, you have a black male that's involved, and now you have cops that are white, and it's automatically inferred that this is a racist incident when it's not.
It's crazy.
And again, we go back to the numbers. Cops kill way more white people than they do black people, and we go with all the black on black crime.
Right. And see, the issue though that the objection that typically comes up anytime I have this conversation, because I talk about these issues, and I have no problem. And I think the fact that we don't talk about these things is one of the big problems that we're facing in our culture. But people typically want to say that, well, yeah, the numbers are higher. Cops kill more white folks than they do black people, but the assumption is that it should demonstrate that there must be some level of racism or bigotry because there are less blacks. Blacks make up 13% of the population, but we typically account for somewhere in the neighborhood of 26% of all shootings when it comes to the police. So the assumption is right offhand that it must be racially motivated.
Right.
My argument is typically, that could be possible. I'm not saying that there's never a chance, but you can't approach this conversation unless you address the unfortunate reality of the crime rate within aspects of the black community.
Oh, well, I mean, listen, on both the most recent cases, now the one in Atlanta and with Mr. Floyd. The reality is the police were there on a lawful business. They got called there.
Very true.
They got called there. They responded. And on both, apparently they probably, I'm not so sure about the first one with Mr. Floyd. I'm not sure exactly what transpired. But I know with the one in Atlanta, I'm watching it, and it looks like they had ample probable cause to make an arrest.
So we're talking about the recent case that took place over the weekend in Atlanta. Rayshard Brooks.
Rayshard Brooks, yeah.
It's a DUI case, DUI call. You've been reading up on it. Can you elaborate a little bit?
What it was is, I think there was a call that someone was sleeping in a car, and listen, we've had that call before, and there are times where I've did the old Mary. I'll make sure that person gets home safe.
I've done it.
Or we'll make an arrest on it.
Until Metro, I remember Metro said, "No, we can't do that anymore." I was fresh out of the academy. I was in fresh out of field training, and I remember. Yeah, the guy, it was no damage on the outside of the vehicle, and he didn't have a major track record. I cut him a break.
Sure. I mean, sometimes
give him a warning, send him on his way.
And I'm not saying that these officers needed to do that in this case. It was apparent that Mr. Brooks was having difficulty with the field sobriety test. There was one point I know that the officer ended up doing a breathalyzer, and I'm presuming that he's probably over the limit.
Yeah, from what I heard, he was.
But if just watching it, you can see some of the answers like, oh, you had a drink? What'd you drink? Oh, I don't remember. How many did you have? 1.5. And the typical, 2 beers or 1.5.
Exactly.
So the typical response is that you can infer that someone is probably intoxicated. In today's form, where we are now, and the distrust that most people have with police, it might have been another option. So, you know what, man, we're gonna get you a ride home. We're gonna do something different. I don't want to necessarily take you to jail, but this was a probable cause arrest where the officers were doing their job.
100%.
And the other side of that is, say if they had let him go and he was able to get back to his car and drives away and then kills an innocent person, and then they look at the computer-aided dispatch and say, hey, this guy was stopped by the police about an hour ago. Why didn't they take him to jail? And then everybody would be screaming and yelling that the cops don't do their job.
It's the old saying, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Or rocking a hard place,
100%. So, if things went well, the officers would have been like, oh, no one would have known about it. Had that guy, had they cut him loose, he walked home. Or let's say they cut him loose and he walked home and he gets ran over on his way home. because he's drunk and he's stumbling
Right.
and he
Right.
gets in traffic and gets ran over.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Oh, the cops stopped him. He was drunk. Why didn't they take him to jail? You can't win.
So, no,
you can't win as a cop today. You can't
win.
win.
So in this set of circumstances, the officers did what they felt was the right thing. It was apparently a lawful arrest.
Absolutely.
And the second they determine or they decide to make that arrest, I think one cuff got on, I believe.
I'm not sure.
And then
I have to watch it.
And then you see when there's a struggle and a very violent struggle because he was very strong. And I believe one of the officers takes his taser out, and then he becomes disarmed by Mr. Brooks. And you can see it where the officer's holding on to it. And this kid is so strong, or he has such strength, that he's able to stand up when both these officers had him down for him. To have somebody stand up from a position like that.
With two people,
and these cops they seem like young, relatively in shape cops. So again, I go back to it. You have a situation where when someone's adrenaline is just pumping and they're hell bent on not being taken into custody, very, very dangerous. And you go back to the part where they're unarmed. But he was unarmed initially, but the second he took that officer's taser, then he's armed. Now, he's armed. Okay?
Now, a lot of the arguments I've been hearing, I've been talking online this morning, yesterday. I made a short video on Code Red Conversation on the YouTube channel. Short video, just kind of ranting.
Oh no, I can see you're very impassioned.
I'm pissed, man. I'm pissed because I'm so freaking tired, man. I know guys, man. There were so many times where we potentially put our lives on the line.
Exactly.
For people we didn't know nothing about these people.
Exactly.
They call, they got a problem, we're there.
Yeah.
And we have no problem being there. We want to be there.
Right.
We want to stop we want to stop the problem from happening. We want to catch the bad guy. But the world we're living in today is this, there's nothing an officer can do that's right. You are automatically considered a bad guy.
Yeah.
After the shooting, man, that's messed up, man.
Yeah,
why'd you do that?
Yeah.
What? So I paused, I stopped you real quick because I'm consistently hearing, and I want you to address it, the officers, he had a taser.
Right.
A taser isn't a deadly weapon.
No.
How would you respond?
Here's the response to that, that's a weapon used predominantly by law enforcement to stop someone who's more so violent and demonstrating assaultive, aggressive behavior. So it's used to incapacitate somebody. And when somebody becomes incapacitated, what normally happens, and I've seen it numerous times, because years ago on Metro we were assigned the first group of tasers from the federal government. It was from a grant.
Gotcha.
And we were tasing people left and right. And now obviously things have changed. It used to be you told somebody to do something, they said, no, I'm not going to do it, then we tase them, but we don't do that anymore. And it's a learning curve. However, but I had one cop in my squad who must have had, I don't know, like 20 deployments in less than 2 weeks. But he just loved using it. It was an incredible instrument.
Yeah.
But then we started to find out at the time that it's not always the option. Right? It's a great option, but it's not always the option.
Very true.
And I'm still one of those proponents of I like to go hands-on prior to using it, if and when I can. But in this particular incident, once this, I'm calling him a suspect. Once the suspect disarmed the officer of his taser, and then gets away, and then he starts to flee. Well, then the officer goes after him because obviously, and I'm telling you now, and sometimes if you look at it from a different perspective, this officer became the victim of a robbery. That's his property. It's issued to him by the state or the county or the city to do his job, and so it was forcibly taken away from him. Then you think violently, and he gets up, and he's able to demonstrate enough strength to stand up when they had him down, and he stands up, and that's strength, and
it made me wonder a little bit if he might have been under the influence of something other than alcohol.
And that's what I'm.
I hope. We're assuming. We don't know.
But I hope. I mean, when they do the toxicology, I hope that the media will say, well, he was under the influence of A, B, C, and D.
Right.
And we know in the history of policing, when people are under the influence of several types of different drugs and intoxicated, they can be incredibly strong and powerful people.
Yeah, good luck with that with the media.
Right. No, I get you.
And that's regardless of what channel you're watching. Nowadays, it's real suspect. Everybody seems to. The cop is the bad.
The cop is the bad guy.
The cop's the enemy.
And listen, and what's driving me. Listen, I was a lifelong Democrat.
Right.
I was a lifelong,
Right.
and I've always been a proponent of the union and protecting workers because many times they're treated unfairly and they have nobody. So that was just a thing I grew up with, like in New York City.
Especially being a minority, man.
Right.
Black man, same thing. Being when I was raised.
Right. But I'm telling you, I mean, now when I look at it, we got to stop making excuses. We got to stop making excuses. Wait a second. You have the opportunity in your life to do what you want, and you can't say that I'm being held down by white privilege. I'm going to tell you something. I'm working over by the COVID-19 site,
right,
and it's being done by the Army National Guard. 75% of all those Army National Guardsmen and women were minority, black, Hispanic, Asian, white, and it was mixed. And I said, that's America.
100%.
And every one of them had the opportunity to say, well, I'm going to do something else, but I'm going to go serve my country. I'm going to get an education for free,
right,
which the government gives to you for doing that.
Right.
So you give a little, you get a little back. We all have that opportunity. So I want to stop. I want to, like, the narrative is crazy because all police are using excessive force against every minority, especially black men. And when you get down to it, you look at it, and again, then we go back again to Rayshard Brooks again in this particular case. He disarms the officer. The officer is a victim of a robbery. We're in a situation where they're supposed to be using objective reasonableness during this violent encounter. And we can't use that 20/20 hindsight thing.
Not at all.
It's what's happening to him there.
At that moment,
And I'm going to tell you right now, those officers were scared to death. And I'm going to tell you, and you and I know, because we were in a squad where we had officers disarmed of their taser, and they ended up shooting and killing that suspect. And that was a righteous shooting. There could have been different ways, but at the moment, they're dealing with those two officers, what they were dealing with, and then there's a shotgun in the room, and there were children in the room, and there's so many variables going on, and this person is throwing them around like rag dolls, and then they're there, and they can't retreat because they're already in there, and then the time came when they disarmed them, and it's not like. So, well, he probably doesn't know how to manipulate that, so he probably won't hurt me. That's not what the officers are thinking. He just took a low lethal weapon against me, but if it's used against me properly, he can incapacitate me and take my firearm or hurt me even worse. You can fall from being shot from a taser because your body locks up, and you can fall over, and you can fall on your head. I've seen guys fall on their teeth and lose like 4 or 5 front teeth in their mouth. So you can get a concussion, you can be concussed, you can have a brain injury. So in this particular incident with Mr. Brooks, you see when he's running away, he has the taser in his hand, the light is still on, and he turns, and it appears he's pointing at the officer. I cannot tell if he discharged it or not.
Well, even the motion of it,
just the motion.
He posed a threat as if he is going to fire a taser. And the thing that people often forget during this whole discussion and debate is that in order to deploy or use deadly force, it doesn't have to simply be a threat of death or substantial bodily harm. A taser, prong. We're told where we are allowed to and not allowed to point a taser. You want to get it widespread on the body, not aim at the head. Hit him just like you're pointing. You hit him in the eye. The guy's blind. His vision's gone potentially. That was by the legal standard of it, that was a potentially deadly threat that he posed at that moment.
Absolutely.
And let's say he hit him. I want to make sure that we're touching on all the things I've been hearing over the last couple of days when people have been talking about this whole case. Well, don't officers have vests? What are the chances of that? If he had gotten tased, what are the chances of it actually locking him up? Which goes back to the hindsight being 20/20. Whoever evaluates these deadly force events, you can't judge it from that perspective. It has to be the officer who was involved in that situation at that moment. What would a reasonable officer do? constantly being reminded of the fact that we're talking about events that are tense, rapidly evolving, stressful situations where an officer is forced to make a split-second decision. A lot of people don't understand that. If you're not familiar with that, ladies and gentlemen, check out Graham versus Connor, the court cases, Tennessee versus Garner. They address all these aspects, and thankfully, the courts understood that these are the potential risks that cops have to face, or there's a good chance that they'll come in contact with when they're out there in their normal functions, their normal policing duties. But man, so that's why I just wanted to veer off a little bit, because I wanted to make sure that the public understands that. The public understands that it's not, oh, well, I sat back and I watched it 10 times and that officer could have done that. You're not on that call. You're not there.
You're not on that call.
The officers, those two officers, they didn't have that opportunity. They didn't have the opportunity to hit pause, rewind it back, and then say, okay, if this guy does X, Y, Z, I'm going to do A, B, C. They don't have that. It's right there at that moment. So forget all your personal opinions. It sounds nice, it sounds good, but the officer on the scene, it's his judgment. That's the standard.
And it's what he's feeling at that very moment.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, from my opinion, I mean, just based on being in similar incidents, but fortunate enough not to have them go to a deadly force encounter, you are scared to death, man. You get scared. We're human beings. We're not ninja warriors. We're not, we're not samurais. We're not robots. We're human beings who train as much as we can, but in many places it's minimal, and it should be a lot more.
Unfortunately, and hopefully we'll talk about that before we get done here.
But I want people to get it, and I'm not trying to create a bridge between like the police community and the community out there that's protesting, that's doing it lawfully in the right way.
100%.
I think it's very. I would love to sit down with some of these people to the very, very far to the left or very, very far to the right, and they're
because you get it from both sides.
You get it
there
from
are a lot of
both
people
sides.
that just hate cops. Some people hate cops that are more extremely on the conservative side because they view cops as being oppressing people's rights,
occupying force kind of thing.
100%. The extremists, when you're talking about like your sovereign citizens, people like that. But then you got on the other side who want anarchy, as we see what's going on in Seattle. We'll get into that later on. But
exactly. But I just hope people understand, and what I've been seeing, and again I shoot back to the media, and I saw the district attorney from Atlanta, Georgia, talking about this shooting with Mr. Brooks, and I'm saying to myself, he already vilified these officers. They didn't even complete the investigation. It was basically just starting. And he's already saying, well, he's already inferring that there's going to be an indictment and these officers are going to be arrested. And look, they already fired one of the officers. And here's the thing. Again, there's no due process, and that's why I go back to, wait a second, man. He got called there. Those officers were about to make a valid arrest, and Mr. Brooks started resisting violently. And he disarms an officer of his taser, and he runs away, and then he points it at him. Stop. All he had to do was say, all right, so you know what, I'm going to make a complaint against you in IB, but I don't feel I should be going to jail. But you know what, guys, do what you got to do.
Right.
What makes you think that you have to turn around and start fighting? Who's telling you to do that? Just stop it and comply, like you said. Just comply. You have so many avenues to complain against officers, and we deal with that for years because a lot of the cops become hands off. Because I'm not doing anything because this guy's gonna make a complaint or it's gonna go south, and so now you want defunding of police. Well, now you're gonna have depolicing, and when somebody breaks into your house or you get robbed at gunpoint or there's a big disturbance call where you need the police and they're not showing up. There's your anarchy. You want that?
You want it.
And so if you want it, that's what you're going to get. And then you have, well, then what do you have? So now everybody's in their homes. They're scared to death. So, I mean, I don't want to create this crazy picture in everybody's mind, but that's when I see what happened in Seattle.
The reality of it, man.
When I see what happened in Seattle and they took over the police station, that's anarchy.
That's nuts,
That's
man.
Anarchy. And
total chaos. And the fact that local government is allowing that to happen is crazy. Imagine that happening here, man. Like, honestly.
That won't happen
It
here.
wouldn't happen here, man.
I will tell you, when I tell you the mayor of that city, she's saying, oh, well, it's just a peaceful protest. And well, if it's so peaceful and we have all this property damage, you look at the police station, it's been defaced. They took the police off, put people, and that truly becomes anarchy. So when are you gonna
just walking around? They put gate barriers up to keep people from coming in. You got people walking around with AR-15s. How is that peaceful protest?
And then what are we gonna do? What about all the people who have businesses and that live in that area? They just want life to go back to normal. They can't do it. I saw a store on it today, so I can't do anything because they're all in front of my property. I mean, they're destroying other properties I was fortunate to have, but
right.
We're allowing we're allowing criminal activity just to be pervasive and continue and continue and continue. So I think what we as a police community, because we're the front line in communities, right? If something goes wrong, I gotta call the cops.
Right.
And let's face it, for years it's been a love-hate relationship, right?
Always.
When things go well with the cops, man, they were so great.
October 1st,
they loved us.
9/11, cops are the hero, man.
Heroes, I mean, unbelievable.
But how quickly do they forget?
Did you just see the one with the state trooper from Nevada here, and he climbed over a fence to save a lady who was on the outside part on the overpass?
I didn't see the whole video. I saw a little.
I wish they would have showed that nationally, because this was a young officer. He was a Latino officer, so he's a minority, and he goes on the other side trying to save what I believe was a white woman, or sounded like. I think it was a white woman. I couldn't see her because of the
suicidal.
But yeah, suicidal. But she's hanging on the outside of the gate or on the overpass. So I mean, it's a 30-foot drop, easy. So she's gonna either die or she's gonna get seriously hurt. Yeah. And this officer climbed over it with no protection, with no tethering, no nothing, to grab onto her and hopefully get her. They hooked her up with a handcuff and put it on the fence. So if she slipped or fell, she would hold her up. And then the fire department was coming. But he went over that to save someone's life. And people,
put his life at risk.
But they don't say anything about that. They don't say anything about that.
They don't care, man. That happens every day.
Every day.
Thousands of times a day. In this nation,
right?
Thousands, or at the very least, hundreds of times a day. In this nation, cops, like I said in the beginning, put their livelihood on the line, put their lives on the line. They risk their own well-being for someone else. Right. But no one cares because the media has decided that we're going to emphasize, for whatever reason, for ratings, political game, whatever the case may be, the media has decided that cops, you're going to be the enemy. And we're going to rile people up and get people pissed off. We're going to get folks angry because we're going to emphasize every single time a black man is shot. Regardless of what that black man was doing, that's irrelevant in most cases. The fact that he was unarmed, not taking into account the taser, the fact that he took the taser, that's like a side note. Right. No one wants to talk about that. Right. Oh, well, he didn't, they don't want to talk about that. Over and over again, I just yell over and over again, stop resisting, comply. I'm going through 2019, the Washington Post use of force database. And they even posted something 2020, about 6 of them. Already about half of them, quote unquote, unarmed, or I wouldn't say half, I would say probably about 70% of those who were deemed unarmed were fleeing. First of all, they had committed a crime and they were fleeing. If we can get it through people's heads, in particularly black men, because we're the ones who are being told that we're the hunted. Right. So that's why I get so angry at the media and the politicians, because when they do their debates, their national debates, or any opportunity they get to talk, they bring these issues up. And they talk about institutional racism, and they talk about the police are racist. It's a racist system. Right. If you hear that over and over and over again, it doesn't have to be proven anymore. It's just assumed to be truthful. Right. And so you're like, it must be true. And I believe that. I believed that for so many years of my life, man.
Check the statistics. Check this.
It wasn't until I actually was out there on the job and saw what police have to go through. Right. And I was just like, man, oh man, this is a totally different world out here. Right. And then lately, when I'm really looking at the numbers, and now going back to what I was just saying, I've been going through the cases, and you see resisting. First of all, you see them committing. There's a commission of a crime. various levels. Some are misdemeanor offenses, some are felony offenses.
Sure.
If we stop committing the crime, and if we stop fighting, the vast majority of these shootings would disappear.
Right.
But no one wants to talk about that.
Right.
It's the cops. The cops are the ones that
Right.
need to change.
Right.
Nobody else. It's all the cops' fault. That's what drives me nuts, man.
Well, both of the interactions, both of them with Brooks and Floyd, the police were there lawfully. They were called there.
Right.
So they're doing their job, and just you have probable cause to make an arrest. Well, they're making an
100%.
arrest. They're doing their job.
And even if you say about Floyd, and we know we're not saying he deserved to die. I want to make sure
Absolutely
everybody knows that we're
Right.
saying that. But he resisted.
He did.
He resisted the police.
He did. He
And
did.
and it goes back just to what I was saying. Stop resisting. Comply. If you have a complaint, what you were saying earlier, you have means to go about doing that.
You can go on the
instead
internet.
of putting your life on. Instead of putting your life on the line.
Right. Or just starting to fight when you know the reality is,
insane,
listen, they both knew that they were wrong, that they were in the wrong. They both knew it, and they didn't want to go to jail. It's just simple as that. But the more I keep seeing the narrative of it. It's always the police officers' fault, the police departments,
Right.
and we need tremendous reform. Everybody's saying, "Hey, no chokehold." So everybody's saying now we need
Tremendous police reform.
police reform. So I'm not sure if it's cultural awareness training or de-escalation training or new tactical training. So everybody's screaming, and I've seen retired police professionals on certain channels with the left or right. They're saying, "Oh well, yeah, chokehold. Let's get rid of the chokehold." Well, number one, a lot of departments don't even have it. Number one. Number two, I believe Metro still does. It's called the lateral vascular neck restraint, where you compress the carotid arteries and it incapacitates somebody. They become
Inhibits
unconscious
the
for
blood
a
flow.
short. Right, so they pass out for anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds and they're revived, usually all the time. Again, in any defensive tactic you use, if you're dealing with a person who's under the influence of certain types of drugs and been drinking, there's a possibility in any physical encounter they can die.
Right.
That's just it. It's just simple as that. But everybody's screaming about let's get rid of the chokehold, but that's not why Floyd died. He died because there was a knee on his neck and there was a consistent pressure for over almost 9 minutes. So that's we're addressing something that didn't even happen. What happened was a knee on the neck, and simply enough, and I go back to this over and over again, and what we've learned from all the stories and media attention is that 2 of those officers were just got out of field training. They just got out of the academy. And again, I'm not.
Yeah, or they were in field training.
They were in field training, but I believe it was 4 days. They had been on 4 days. So 2 of these cops are rookies. Now I don't know if one of them was the Asian officer who was in front. He was standing in front and kind of keeping guard. But
Yeah, I'm thinking that he was on a little longer. I think
It's
it might have been
possible.
the guys, but yeah, you could be.
I'm not sure, but I know 2 of them were rookies.
Right.
And the reality is, when you're a rookie and you got a field training officer who's a 19-year veteran, who's probably been around the way, probably been involved with some really serious, high stressful incidents. I think what happened to them is that they just didn't know what to do. I truly believe that. Now, do I think that the right thing would be for anybody to say, "Hey, look, come on, gotta get your knee off"?
Right.
But I think where they were, they think, well, this guy's a 19-year cop. He must know what he's doing. He's probably, maybe the pressure's not that much. So they're kind of mitigating it in their mind.
And it was a department policy. That was actually, as far as the department went, their department, that was actually a legal use of force.
Okay, well, and that's and
I'm just saying, if you're a rookie cop,
right.
and let's say you had no martial arts background, even though to me it's tough because it's like, common sense, man.
Common sense.
And I think that's where the 3rd-degree murder case charge came from. But then they pushed it to 2nd degree.
Right, because all the
and I think it's going to be a little harder to prove, personally.
Yeah.
But
it's sad. It's sad for them. And when I look at this, and again, I think I've said this to you before, and now I'm just giving you my personal opinion about how I know cops and how cops can become.
Yeah.
And what I saw is that he was in either a very deep psychotic moment where he lost himself in those 9 minutes waiting for medical to arrive. He lost himself, and people are filming him, people are talking to him, He's on his neck. He's not moving. He's
Yeah,
not breathing.
man.
And he's just sitting there and he's thinking, no, and I think he lost his mind.
And even it's alleged that one of the officers mentioned turn him on the side.
Yeah, turn him on the side. You know, let's get rid of. We don't want him to get
worried about
asphyxiated.
exactly.
So let's just get him. And so I think he just lost it. And he had and again I can't speculate on his background. I know that he's been involved in some other incidents where he's been use of force or
shooting
certain things. So he's he's probably a hard
and
seasoned cop.
And a lot of people are using that. Well, he was involved in all these other uses of force and investigations. Why was he allowed on the street? Just because you're involved in them doesn't necessarily mean that you were guilty
There
of
were
doing
some
anything
guys
wrong. 19-year career, you can come across all kinds of things.
And there's some guys are magnets. I mean, they're just for whatever reason. They're hardworking cops. They go out there. They like to go to the hot calls, and boom, and they're in the middle of stuff.
Hot areas.
I mean, here we go. So I'm not trying to excuse what happened there. It was totally wrong. I would have loved to see one officer just walk over, like a sergeant, get that quick and says, get off of him. Get off of him now.
Right.
Because you can't do that. We can't do this. Stop. Somebody just with an authoritative tone, get off.
Yeah,
and that's what you need.
Push.
And nobody push
get
them
in there.
off.
You don't even have to. I've been in situations where I don't even have to make the officer look bad.
Right.
I got him, man.
I got him.
And you're like Bogart, your way in there.
Yeah, Bogart. Yeah.
And you're like, man, okay, I got him. I've been in there with guys that we both know.
Yeah.
I'm not naming names.
No,
but there have been times.
And great guys, and we all get this sometimes.
Because
we all get this.
Every one of us.
Some of us are a little better than others, but there are guys that get hot.
Right.
And listen, think about even
in every aspect of society. There are people that are a little bit shorter of fuse than other people.
Right, that's true, and that's gonna
not justifying it, but just the reality.
We're human beings, and the job of policing is it's the human element. We deal with people every day,
and it's confrontation all the time, every day.
Every call you get is going to be a confrontation, whether it's an easy disturbance call or a domestic violence call or a trespass call or if a fraud or forgery call.
Yeah.
I mean, right? I'm sure he became mildly a little resistant. Put him in cuffs, get him outside, and enough of the nonsense. Let's just take care of business and get him out of here. But that's when you need, and that's why. Sure, let's retrain and look at that incident and see what we could have done better. But something as simple as the interaction with Mr. Floyd, it was a very simple thing. I'm going to assume in mind they took him to the ground because he was probably like flailing and pushing. He said, "Let's get him down on the ground, get him down."
Right.
And okay, now he's going to stop. And then he puts him on the neck. And it's okay. And once you see it, and then he stops moving. Okay, then stop. Then roll him on his side, sit him up, and then put him in the police car or put him in the transport wherever he's going to go. End the story. It's easy.
Right.
When you think about how easy that could have been, just to avoid something that simple. And this is going to change policing forever. And Rodney King did the same. But and then think about these other incidents. And I'll tell people, I've seen where officers have been disarmed of their ESB or expandable straight baton. Not the PR-24. I like that weapon much better.
Oh, me too.
But
you have a lot more to go on to.
And that was and the departments don't use that anymore. But anyway. But say if you get disarmed, and then that particular suspect decides to turn towards you, and assault and/or batter you with that baton, and you tell it to a group of people who don't understand policing,
right?
And then the level, if he was able to disarm the officer, because you swing it, and then maybe your hand gets a little loose, and then he just takes it out of your hand, and then he turns it on you. So what would the average person think?
Right.
And he's coming at you with that. It's a metal object. It can inflict some serious harm.
Absolutely.
It is considered a low lethal type weapon. We're supposed to only use it in certain parts of the body.
It can be lethal.
It can be lethal because if somebody hits you over the head.
No head, no neck strike, no groin strike.
Right, exactly. So and the thing is, someone who disarms you over it was maybe like someone very strong, like Mr. Brooks did. He did a taser, but had he taken an ESB or an expandable straight baton and turned and tried to swing at those officers? I mean, is it okay? What are you supposed to do?
Or
what do you expect him to do?
Or he was so hell bent on getting away that he went after a citizen.
Yeah.
People don't think
Or,
of things
or
like
he's running away and he's so scared he runs into somebody's house. And next thing you know, now you have people that are innocent people who have to deal with this guy who's.
He already showed that he was willing to violently fight the police.
So he'll do anything.
Yeah, exactly. What won't he do? Considering everything we've seen over the last few weeks with George Floyd, with the Rayshard Brooks case, we see officers, and we've already been discussing it to a degree, but we see officers who have demonstrated questionable ability to be able to detain, stop a possible threat or a threat. Knowing what you know about over the 20 plus years that you had on the department, in law enforcement in general, what do you think, because we've been talking about, we primarily been talking about the suspect, citizens, but just bringing it home, how can we as officers or those in law enforcement who are listening, or if there's a supervisor or agency, what can we do differently as officers to keep these things from happening all the way around, whether it be communication skills, whether it be physical fitness, whether it be tactics? Where would you start? If you were in charge, if you're the sheriff here in Vegas, and you have the leadership, all the command staff, everyone, the city council, they say we're willing to help you, we're willing to take suggestions. What would you say?
You know, I mean, that's a loaded question.
This is your personal opinion.
Right? No, it's a loaded question, and I think in general. I mean, listen, you're always going to have that very small contingency of officers that just they don't like to train. They don't like to go to classes. You know, they'll go to a class. Oh yeah, whatever. You know, whatever it is.
Right.
You know, I mean, we try to educate each other. And we have a group of officers that are very much and say, listen, how can we be just a little bit better? So when we get to this confrontation, maybe instead of ending up on CNN or Fox, we can call the situation like that with, you know, good tactics, with the speed and violence of action, with knowing how we work with each other. So I think, if the department is to develop a certain criteria where our troops get to train just a little bit more and go through scenarios that are a little bit more dynamic on a regular basis.
Can you elaborate on a little bit more? What do you mean?
I mean, well, like even, you know, they got rid of basically red man training. I don't know how often they do that anymore.
Red man training is
when you have the role player put on a suit, which is a protective gear, and then you give the officer some tools where he becomes involved in a physical confrontation, and they're fighting and wrestling, or the guy's coming at him. So what's he going to do? And we do this with civilian academies.
So more of a reality-based training. So you can use a little bit more force.
So you get that right. We don't want to, but turns out that sometimes, you know, the guys in the red man who are usually seasoned cops who are helping out, they end up getting hurt. But sometimes that's the nature of the beast, right? I mean,
it is.
If you're a football player or a fighter or in some type of business where you're constantly interacting physically with people, it's going to happen.
You're going to get injured in training.
It's going to, and it does happen, and that's a difficult thing, and I understand it, and for liability purposes, and there's just so many angles to look at it from. But what I'll say to the individual officer, and I think you and I had this mindset for many years, and you know we've mentioned it before, where we had a squad of guys, and some guys wanted to train, some guys didn't, and I'd say, hey, let's go shoot. We got an opportunity to shoot. We shoot, and they didn't want to shoot. And so let's practice maybe one defensive tactic move before in briefing, because we might end up using an LVNR today, or a takedown, or a team takedown, supplanting, keeping someone's head down so we can control them. You know, all these different things that just think about it and be prepared to act in a manner where you can take care of business right away. And what I mean by that, sometimes when we disrupt somebody's OODA loop and, you know, orientation, decide, act, right? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Observe, orient, decide, act. But when we do that, many times we can get people in custody very quickly, because they weren't expecting that. They were thinking, well, if I kind of bow up and show them, you know, cops nowadays, they kind of back off.
Yeah.
And I was very opposite about this. And as soon as he does that, boom, let's get him. But as a team tactic, but sometimes you're alone, and I get that, so you have to kind of de-escalate and move back.
Right.
But the overall mindset of policing is, listen, we got to hold our ground. We have to hold our ground, and we can't allow ourselves to stop and think about every interaction that may become physical or may become combative or confrontational. We have to be ready to act, and I think a lot of cops now are taking that step back, and that I'm not doing anything. I can get
it to the extent of everything based on everything we're seeing now. I can understand that. Right. But even before that, there's some guys. There were a group of guys. Right. We all knew them. They're everywhere. Right. Not in a large degree, but we all know that there are a few who just don't want that confrontation. If I'm put in that position where I can really have free reign as far as changing the culture, I'm starting in the academy. This is just my opinion. I've thought this through on multiple occasions. I'm changing the military style of the academy. First half of it, military style. Second half, that's all gone. Right. Because you want to see, first of all, after what is it now? 26 weeks, whatever, 27 weeks, whatever. 6 months, whatever the case may be. The academy. When I went through, it was 26 weeks. It was ridiculously long. That was when I went to the patrol academy. That was in 06. Yeah. And I changed it. First half military style, because you want to see if they got the grit. Right. Because it is an ugly job. Right. Right. After that, you've graduated to a degree. Right. You've made it to the next level. We're going to start treating you like adults. We're going to start treating you with respect. If you screw up, there still may be some discipline. Might be more academic, but no more screaming and yelling and push-ups out the window. Because you're taking people who you've been drilling for 6 months, getting in their crap, getting in their face, push-ups, yelling at them, screaming at them. You're taking them from 6 months of that, and then you're putting them out on the streets, and then you expect them to be courteous to the citizen they run across. So I eliminate that. It's more academic based. Still do physical fitness. So that's one. That's what you want to say something.
No. Well, I remember because I was attacking the academy for 1 year, and then I promoted to sergeant. But I remember that. And initially, though, I think there's it's kind of like that to an extent. When I went through. No, I know. Well, I was there in 2001, but I know. But every academy class is a little bit different. All players and roles, and then you have a certain. In other words, if you create a specific criteria, where you say, okay, this is how we're going to do it, and that's usually how it is. But you have certain personalities. Well, you might have say an academy sergeant, and he was a former United States Marine. They say, listen, these guys got to get tough, and we're just going to rock and roll the whole time through. When I was attacked,
you may even have some that had never stepped foot in the military, but they feel like they have something to prove. I've seen that.
Well, I'll tell you, I was not in the military, and I was tough on my guys with physical fitness.
Well, that's because it's a big deal to you.
No, but I said, you got to be fit for this job. And you got to be confident enough to deal with it. So, if you did something wrong, I had one kid one day come in and do 500 push-ups. He kept coming in every break. But that was pretty hard. But this kid was in shape.
Yeah, but I'm saying that. Was that really necessary?
No, but he was in shape.
I mean, honestly, though.
No, but he was in shape. So I wanted to test him, and he did it. He did it. So I just wanted to test him, just to push him a little bit. But he became a SWAT sergeant. I don't know if he's there anymore. Good guy. But anyway, but. We kind of toned it down a little bit. I remember I did. So it's very personality driven. So you have to create a criteria where we're not going to be that way.
There needs to be 100% standard.
Yeah, right. Across the board.
Across the board. Right. You can't come in there and all of a sudden decide to raise the standard, and then someone else comes in. Right. When I went through, the physical fitness standard was ridiculously low, other than running. Right. But push-ups. Right. I think the most we ever did at one time was like 15. Yeah. Okay. I was like, what the heck, man? Yeah. I seriously, I was. And then one day, near the end of the academy, our tax sergeant gets pissed off at everybody, and he has us sitting there cranking out like 200-300 push-ups. I'm like, man, you had us doing 15 when we got in trouble. Now you're all mad because you were embarrassed, and now you're trying to take it out on us. When I got done with the academy, when we were in the graduating party, I let them know. Yeah. I didn't even make it through. I wasn't even in field training yet.
That's okay.
But I let them know. I said I just wanted to understand what was I said all you did. This is literally what I told my attack officer. I said all you guys did was break us down the whole academy. There was no building up. Right. I said I don't think anybody in this academy is going out to those streets, going out to field training with any level of confidence whatsoever. because it was constant beat down.
Yeah,
You don't know what you're doing. You're an idiot.
Right,
constant that. And then now, okay, you're out there, and now you're about to be evaluated on whether. And of course, you that's where you really learn. We know that field training is where you really learn everything. But you're going out there with zero confidence. I would say you change that up. You change the military style up.
Right.
Then, but also during the academy, you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
You're learning some Krav Maga, some type of striking style.
Right.
And you're doing that 3 times a week. You're doing that 3 times a week. So by the time you graduate, yes, and we start very basically, so you minimize injuries, and you're building step technique.
Right.
So when you have guys grappling and they get somebody down on the ground, they know how to keep somebody down on the ground.
Right.
They get their back, they put their hooks in, they break out their base. They're in a better position to control someone.
Sure.
So you build, and after 6 months of that, at least twice a week, after 6 months of that, you walk out of that academy,
You have a little.
and you're building a mindset, also a respectful mindset, because that military style is over with now.
Yeah.
And you drill into them. Yeah, you got bad guys out there, but the vast majority of your interactions are going to be with average everyday citizens who aren't your enemy. You need to know how to get there when necessary, but most of the time you need to be able to have a rational, reasonable conversation with someone.
No,
those would be 2 things. And then the third one is physical fitness, but I think all those correlate. I would have a high level, and then you may not be able to make it mandatory, but I would make it as highly incentive-based physical fitness program, and even maintaining your defensive tactics. If you're doing a jiu-jitsu, if you're doing Muay Thai, if you're doing Krav Maga, I would make sure that you get some type of reward, some days off a year. If we know you're doing that, maybe even have it down at the training academy, or have a few locations around town where you can like check in, and so people know that you're being legitimate about it. Because if you give officers more skills, more tools than just their gun, you're going to minimize the deadly force encounters. It's just the reality of it.
Well, no, and that was always I was always a big advocate of that. Is that there are many times that we can be on top of our game enough where we don't have to get to that position. But again, that's still sometimes very, very difficult to say, because I'm looking at the encounter that just happened in Atlanta, and I'm saying that was a really violent struggle. And when you have, and those officers looked like they weren't.
Well, they didn't necessarily look like they were superstars.
Right.
And of course,
but that doesn't mean anything either, because sometimes you see guys that they don't look it, but they are.
And you can be in great shape, but you may not have the skills.
Right, that's true.
To back that physical
so that's why
fitness up. And they, for all I know, these guys could be skilled.
Right.
People get up. If you're we started off our whole interaction talking about he looked like he might have been under the influence or something. However, if you go into that with some skills, skills can, and you have 2 officers who are similarly skilled, that can make a major difference. It can. And I'm not saying it's going to win the fight every single time. There's always going to be somebody. If you had Daniel Cormier, who's under the influence, and he doesn't want to go to jail.
That's going to be a tough one.
John Jones. What are you going to do with a guy like that?
No. I mean, that's the reality. So you have to. You have to measure each encounter.
But in most cases, though, if you have officers who are skilled, so you're going to minimize those chances. That's why this whole concept of defunding the police, we're going to defunding or disbanding. Disbanding is just insane. But when you're talking about defunding, we're going to take LA. They're talking about taking $150 million and putting it into the communities of color. That may be good, but what are you going to do? What are you teaching them? Like, honestly. Are you teaching them that you're nothing but a victim and how the system is against you? Or are you teaching them what to do when you come in contact with the police? So it has to be a little bit, if you're going to do that, if you're going to take away that much from the police who are already undertrained, I would say almost every agency to some degree is undertrained.
Everybody.
And you're going to take away $150 million out of their budget? You're asking for trouble.
You're asking for trouble.
You're asking for problems.
You're asking for big problems.
But that's what I would do, man.
I think that's a very valid point. I mean, I know if someone were to propose something like that, you'd probably meet with a lot of resistance.
No doubt.
And but but what I think just from a more like a more ground level and a more true
Basic.
Is that, well, number one, if we can kind of create a culture like where we explain, like, and again, I think we were very much of that mindset. Hey man, let's just be a little sharper. Let's train a little bit more. Let's just, we don't have to go crazy, but let's do some stuff and like do some team tactics and taking somebody in custody who's violent, and let's work on these things so that when they do occur, we're much better at it than just the average guy, because at least we're putting a little bit of time and effort into it. So I think it's got to be like one of those, here we are, and guys like yourself and guys like myself have said, hey, listen, we have to be better, because we don't want another one of those incidents to happen. So we have to do everything in our power within our own means. And listen, it's the same thing, but I can't expect the police department to do everything for me. There are some things I got to do myself. And so that goes back to let's be accountable for ourselves and our own actions. Hey, I go out there every day on patrol, and I don't expect any, detectives in homicide or property crimes. I don't expect them to be doing it, although they probably should as well. But at least the vast majority of patrol officers, have that team concept and have that little bit of a train. Remember, we used to do in briefing, we just try a move. Hey, let's work on this just for 5 minutes. And I used to say the same thing when I remember a former SWAT officer who recently passed away last year. He said, draw your firearm 5 times before you go out, because if you need to get it on and get on point and get to the target, you're just practicing a little bit of muscle memory. So little things, and I think if you change the culture, because and that's really what it is, because you got to say, and I want us to set that warrior mindset, but you got to remember we're guardians first. We're really guardians of our communities, and every now and then we're going to be involved in confrontations, which we have to have that warrior mindset. But the true warrior mindset is about stopping the action. We're not there to hurt people. We're not there to kill people. We just got to stop the action.
Yeah, stop that.
So innocent people don't get hurt. So I don't get hurt. So the suspect doesn't even get hurt. But obviously we know that's far and few between.
Right.
But it's got to be a mentality, and it's got to be from the ground up. And I don't think the top is going to be real keen on that.
But now, what are the options?
Yeah.
Honestly, had this mindset that we're talking about happened 5 years ago, and it started in the academy, and then and it was enforced, or like I said, highly incentive based, as in time off, extra points on the promotion test, extra points on if you want to transfer, extra credit. If you make it to where it's almost like, I need to do something here if I want to be competitive. If you make it like that, and I know the union would potentially get exactly highly incentivized, and I know the union would get in the way probably, because I think it's already been tried and the union got in the way. Yeah. But if you put that out there and you make that the culture, then you start seeing people will start to change, start to adapt their habits in order to say, I want to promote, I want to become sergeant, I want to become lieutenant, captain, whatever the case may be. I need to start doing a few things to better myself. And man, I'm telling you, I think it could have such too many police agencies, are law enforcement agencies in general, whether we're talking about corrections, police, whatever, are reactive instead of proactive. If you start putting in these practices into place early on, you can prevent so many different issues. And a lot of the things that we're talking about now, a lot of these may not even have taken place, may not even have happened.
It's true cultural reform. That's what that is. And I think that's what a majority of the people want to see after these incidents that we're seeing, is that we need some cultural reform in the policing industry, period.
We're good.
So how do we go about doing that, right? And what you're bringing up is very valid and very it makes good sense. It is reasonable. We just have to be better at what we do.
Right.
We just got to be better, because the element that we deal with, they have a whole bunch of ways to get us going, and either hurting us or disarming us, or they're on drugs, or they have mental issues, and then now they want to they defund us. Well, we'll call the social worker when your husband is on crack and cocaine. He's coming in.
We're going to see how long that lasts.
Right. So my point is, listen, when someone's violent and they're not cooperating, I can't help it if that person decided to do drugs and has some mental issues. I understand, and I feel I feel for that because so many people suffer from mental illness in the city and all over the United States, and they just many times they don't know how to respond. But then there's other people like I say, Mr. Brooks. He looks like he was just straight up violent. Mind you, we thought he might be under the influence as well, but he was just straight violent. There was not even a little bit of talking to him. I mean, like where he would, at first he seemed very cooperative.
He seemed cool. He seemed like a typical DUI guy. He doesn't really want to admit how much he drank because he doesn't want to go to jail. We get it. Yeah, we understand that.
Yeah, I get it.
But as soon, I mean, he flipped that switch so quick.
So I want to see, on speculation, I'm curious to see if he has a background with the police before. I'm just curious to see.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speculate that he does.
I would be willing to guess that he did. Just because of his reaction, the way it went down.
I mean, who's going to do that? But a response like that is usually from someone who says, okay, I'm hell-bent on not going to jail. And that's usually a guy who's been in the system a little bit. And says,
doubt.
I ain't going to jail.
And this may be the last time. This might have been his third DUI.
It might have been. We don't know.
Yeah. We don't know. Like you said, we're speculating. We don't know at all. But we've been around the block. Me and you've been around the block.
No, and I'm looking. So let's be real. So I think the thing is for people, if we can, right now you want to have an influence, or we would like to have an influence on the people that are so far off on this and not truly understanding community interaction with the police.
Right.
Just stop for a moment with all this violence and this occupation and saying cops suck and they're terrible and all that. And stop that for a minute and remember that we're all citizens. We all care about our communities. Again, 99.9 police officers come out and they really want to make a difference. And to this day, 30 years in policing, or just to this day, if I can make a difference, I'm going to do it. I don't want to get jaded. And we've all been at that spot where it's us and them. But you have to kind of reevaluate and look at yourself again and say, wait, let me get back to the core of what my job is. And my job is to protect and serve. And that's the main key. But I need people to understand what I face on a daily basis. And there's people out there that are just not going to go to say yes or no. We're going to have them, and they're a small contingent of people, but
enough of them.
But there's enough of them where we deal with them every day.
Right.
And there's that small part of that community. So I would just speak to these Antifa, these people to the left,
BLM,
and right. Stop for a second, man. We're just trying to keep the peace, man. That's all we're trying to do. And when you call us, or anybody calls us, we're just trying to make things safe and to serve and protect. That's what we're doing. So cooperate with us. It's really simple. I mean, it's that simple.
Right.
But when you have that in your mind that all cops are bad and they all kill black people or minority people. Well, did you see the rioting in Miami?
My God!
But what I'm going
to hitting the cop car with the skateboard.
Yeah.
And you got a crowd of people just swooping in and.
Well, did you take a look at all the officers? They were predominantly black and Latino officers.
Right, and they were getting down.
And listen, and so you're not telling me that this is about race.
Right.
This is not about race.
But a lot of people go even deeper. That's where they say it's institutional because you have black people. I mean, these people have worked so hard to come up with a worldview and an excuse because they'll say it's. And I know this isn't everyone. I know everyone doesn't think like this. But those who are out there, those radical, and it's not even that radical anymore. It's becoming more of a mainstream opinion. I don't even want to say radical anymore. But those people who believe that it's so ingrained, racism is so ingrained within the very fabric of this state, of this country, that you cannot avoid it anywhere. Every system, the criminal justice system and all of its aspects, from the courts to the policing, to the jails, to the prisons, is inherently racist. And if you are a part of it, you could be Puerto Rican, you could be black, and you are just so indoctrinated that you just abide by it, and you're clueless. That's where they are. That's where we are. That's what the battle is, and that's why sometimes it seems such a daunting task to try to overcome this perspective. But it is an ingrained worldview that people are taught. This is decades worth of indoctrination in our culture, in our colleges. In politically, in literature, that we're dealing with, and we're seeing the fruit of it now.
Right.
That's where we're at, man. But if you have any final thoughts, brother, we're gonna wrap it up, man. And you kind of were summing it up pretty good, man. Any last thoughts? Like, what would, if you want to say something to anybody, to officers, to the citizens, what would it be?
To the officers, right? Man, look, my heart goes out to you every day. I still work part-time for University Police, so I get involved with encounters, and I try to keep my head up. I try to keep on top of my game. I'm not a kid anymore, but I try to be sharp. And so please take that extra step to make sure that you're a little sharper, train a little bit harder, have those discussions with your troops and other officers that you work with. Remember about that duty to intervene, because we're all human beings and sometimes we get hot, and that's a big one now. So please, just keep those things in your mind as police officers, and you know what, just stay strong. I mean, this is part of our job. And,
hard times.
And it's a warrior creed, and it's also the guardian creed. We're out there protecting people, and we're not in warrior circumstances every day. Now it seems like we are, but because cops are getting shot, they're getting killed.
Stabbed.
And it's just, okay, so, but keep your head up, keep sharp, roll your head around, keep that 6, watch each other's backs, and if some of us are getting over the top, step in and pull them away, duty to intervene. For the everyday citizen, I still think the majority of people, I really do think they do support the police.
I agree.
I think in general, I speak to neighbors or just people that I know in general, and they understand this is a very difficult set of circumstances, and it's not us against them, although that's how it looks right now. But it's not.
That's how it's being made.
It's really not that. It's really not that. You know,
Right.
these officers in these 2 incidents, they had what appeared to be lawful detainments and lawful arrests, and then it went awry, and it went sideways. And it's human nature. Sometimes things go bad, and I'm not making an excuse for anybody.
Right.
But what I'll tell the people that are so far off to one side or the other is, please, just stop and reevaluate it and take a look at it. And maybe stop for a second, and maybe just ask a cop one day why he does what he does, or just get to know us a little bit better. We're all human beings. We got families. We go to the store. It's not us against you. It's not that. We just want to protect the overall community. We want people to go home and be safe. And when we need to intervene, because again, if you have somebody that's mentally challenged and on drugs and running naked through the street with a knife, you can't call a social worker. You can't call the gas attendant. You can't call the 7-Eleven clerk. You can't even call the fire department. Although they'll be coming up, but you can't even call them. You got to.
They're holding short. They're hanging in the back.
They're holding short. It's got to be the cops.
Right.
And we want it to end peacefully. I remember, I can't tell you the amount of gratification I had when we had really high, stressful type incidents with a guy with a gun or a knife, and man, we just did something right. We were able to, we were thinking right. We did it right, man. I felt so relieved and so gratified, man. That was good, man.
Yeah,
we could have ended up killing that guy, and we didn't.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you, there's been and people don't even get that. The chances that officers take, like that NHP officer climbing over that fence, he put himself in harm's way. If he had fallen over, they would have fell 30 feet. And he put himself out there with no tethering, no nothing. That happens, like you said, all the time throughout the United States. But we don't hear. I'd love them to show that nationally.
Right.
Put that on one of those major networks,
Right.
and then people take a look. And this woman was distraught, and we were out there. So cops are people that care. We want our places to be better. So. I just hope and pray things get better. And lastly, how I'll finish, and I know you're a man of faith, and I am in my own way. I know we've had long discussions, but I'll tell you about this though. What happened to the community of people, and maybe in your community, your strong Christian community? What happened to the thought of forgiveness? And I know this might just be too much for too many people, but. I truly believe that, again, I go back to the officer with George Floyd, and I hate to mention his name, but I go back to it because I think something happened to him. And I don't believe that he wanted to inflict that kind of damage where he would die.
I don't think he went out there with the mindset, I'm going to kill a black man today.
No,
I don't believe that at all.
But I think as a community, as people, if we don't get to that level where we can just forgive, I know it's a terrible incident, and we're not going to forget it. But can we forgive as a community, as a country? Well, and that's a very devout Christian thought. Can I forgive? Can I forgive people, or can I forgive those officers for what they did? And, you know, overwhelmingly, I would hope that we could. But that's not easy for people. But
it's not easy for most.
It's not. It's not even easy for me, man.
Yeah. I wrestle with it.
I mean, because it's almost like I wish I was there, right? Oh man, I wish I was there, and obviously that's not never gonna happen. But that's my final thought. If we can find that somewhere in our humanity, and we might be able to heal a little bit quicker. We might be able to get to those tables and have that dialogue and interaction with our community and the police.
I agree, man.
And institute some reform where we can be a little bit better, a lot better.
But I'm looking under Georgia Code Title 16, crime offenses,
right.
16-11-106, in regard to firearm use. For the purposes of this code section, the term "quote unquote" firearm shall include stun guns and tasers. A stun gun or taser is any device that is powered by electrical charging units, such as batteries, and emits an electrical charge in excess of 20,000 volts, or is otherwise capable of incapacitating a person by an electrical charge. So under Georgia law, where the shooting took place, he was in possession of a firearm when he took the taser from the officer.
Right.
So when we're debating this topic, make sure you consider those things.
Right.
But hey, brother, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff because we got to get this off our chest too, because we're truly affected by it, as is every American. But people who are former policing and currently in policing,
right.
It's a difficult time, and we want things to get better. I don't want to fight with people on the street. I don't want people coming up to me and giving me the finger. I want to have open dialogue and just explain to people what we want to do, how we want to do it, and how we want to get better. How we want to get better in every profession. And I don't want to. I don't want to inflict any pain or harm on somebody. I don't want to have to use force that becomes that. I don't want that. But in policing, this is the business we're in.
Sometimes it comes with territory.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. There are people out there that are just going to be resistant. There's that criminal element that are hell-bent on just fighting with the police or killing the police. And we're seeing it now. I mean,
no doubt.
So I'll close with one last thing. And I thought about this because I want people to understand and go back to the people who are, it's Black Lives Matter. There was a female police officer in New York City, and she was a single mother of 3 kids. And she was sitting in her vehicle near a command post during the rioting. And a suspect, and I'm sure you, if you haven't seen this, look it up. There was a suspect who came up and shot her in the head point blank in the car. And that suspect was black, and he had a very extensive criminal history. And that officer was in her car doing her job, mother of 3, single mom. And you stop and look at that for a moment. And is that what happened? And this is black on black.
Right.
This wasn't.
Right. Wasn't a white guy.
It wasn't a white guy.
Stereotypical white guy. Right. Mad white cop.
Right.
Black,
so my point. I mean, I would hope that group that's so off to one side or the other, just take a look at that for a second.
Right.
And that person wasn't thinking anything about color and the misuse of force by police. He hated the police.
Right.
So
an opportunity.
So it's more. So it's institutionalized now. It's all of it put together.
Right.
Cops, black cops, white cops, no matter what it is. So then you're gonna hate everybody. So it's just gonna be hate.
Which in turn, it's just defeats the whole purpose, because isn't bigotry and racism and I know people attempt to redefine it, but basically prejudging someone, prejudging someone based on certain characteristics.
Right.
So a lot of people who have been oppressed or held back, or who feel as if they have been, based on the color of their skin, will in turn do it to someone else based on the color of their skin or the uniform that they wear.
Right.
So
yeah. All right,
brother. Appreciate it.
All right.
Next time, y'all. Hey, if you guys have any ideas on any specific topics that you would like for us to cover, anything at all, put it in the comments down below. We appreciate you guys watching. In the meantime, stay safe, God bless, and make sure you join the conversation. Peace.
I got you.